We have Obi Spencer and Brandon Kay, like usual, and we have a special guest, Tim Ice of the Igloo podcast on Big East men's and women's basketball. How you doing tonight, folks?
Wonderful,
doing
as
right.
always.
All right,
yeah. I mean, I appreciate the invite. I know, I know we've been talking, me and JD, before at the Big East tournament about doing this, and last week didn't line up, but it's a lot nicer and a lot more sweet, pun intended, to come on now ahead of the Sweet 16 Elite Eight.
Oh yeah, the first weekend of March lived up to its name. Let's see where we got it. Let's get started with since you're a Big East guy, we'll start with the performance of the Big East teams in the tournament. 3 out of the 5 teams that the Big East had in the tournament are in the Sweet 16, tied for the most out of any conference with the SEC. Although the SEC had more teams in the tournament to begin with, so the Big East actually has kind of a better win percentage, if you will. Marquette was a bit of a surprise. But everything else is played out kind of as expected. Or what are your thoughts?
So, I think I'm a little biased. When I was filling out my bracket, I had 4 in the Sweet 16. I had Providence getting bounced in the first round, which is what happened. The other 4 got to the second round. Okay, like everyone was expecting it. But I was surprised to see Marquette go down. And again, credit Tom Izzo. He really game planned well, and he stifled Tyler Kolek. 6 turnovers for the Big East Player of the Year. For context, Marquette is a team in the Big East Championship against Xavier in the first round against Vermont. 4 turnovers, 5 turnovers as a team. And Kolek committed 6 turnovers by himself out of the 16 they committed against the Spartans. And, that's the difference between winning and losing sometimes. And, give credit to Michigan State and Tom Izzo. He's a proven winner in March. I know he hasn't won a national championship. And the Big Ten hasn't since 2000. But, there's a reason why Rothstein says January, February, Izzo, because Tom Izzo is really good in March for a reason. And Joey Hauser got a little bit of vindication and revenge against Marquette. He got vilified, him along with his brother Sam, when they transferred out of Marquette, looking like a promising potential top 5 team in 2020 before they left. So for Joey to get payback, that's a big storyline. And then for the rest of the conference, for them to get 3 of those teams to the Sweet 16. First time that the Big East has done that since reconfiguration. After the whole Big East tournament where every session was sold out, the Big East ain't dead. Like last weekend proved that it's not just dead. It is alive and thriving right now. Creighton, new addition in 2013 in the Sweet 16 after crushing Baylor. And it's really funny how 9 years ago in their first year in the Big East, Baylor beat Creighton by 30 in Doug McDermott's last game ever. And it was really funny, though. Ethan Rogge, a senior on that Creighton team, was in attendance. So I can't even imagine how satisfying that must have been for him to watch that in attendance in Denver. And then for Xavier to make it in the first year of the Sean Miller era, another one of those teams that came in with Creighton and Butler in 2013 during the Holcomb reconfiguration. That's got to be really good, too, considering they almost got beat by Kennesaw State, and then they dominated Pitt for the most part. And then UConn. This was a team that Big East play. January came along, and teams were starting to figure them out in the conference. And then they started picking up in the middle of February, and they won, I think, 5 in a row to end the regular season. Marquette cut them down in the Big East semis. It was a game that UConn lost rather than won because of really poor late-game execution. But going into the tournament in a format where you're seeing non-conference opponents, that was to UConn's advantage because look how they were in non-conference. 11-0, all 11 wins by double digits, including one over the number 1 overall seed, Alabama, out in Portland Thanksgiving weekend. So, and they did it again. They dominated Iona, dominated St. Mary's. Now they're going to Vegas, and Dan Hurley exercising some of those, postseason demons he's been experiencing at UConn. And now with Kansas going down, this could be UConn's region to potentially win. I know Gonzaga and UCLA are below them, but UConn's playing as well as anyone in this tournament right now.
Yeah, I believe Brandon had UConn on his bracket. I had Kansas over Marquette in my championship game. There was my Big East bracket, and so that is accordingly up in flames. Now, the Big East is a meat grinder into itself, and especially the tournament with having to win 3 or 4 games in 4 days in order to. So it seems like it takes a lot out of the teams that make it through all that. The teams not named Villanova, at least, that yes, you can make it to the championship week at the Garden and raise a trophy on Saturday night, but at the cost of tournament success, because any of the teams except for Villanova that were able to break through and win the Big East title since reconfiguration, I believe all of them have not made it out of the first weekend. And that happened again, surprisingly with Marquette and Kolek having a terrible game at an inopportune time. Do you think that there's something to that the Big East tournament sort of comes at the expense of later tournament success?
I say yes and no. It's a fair point because Villanova in 18 and 22, they won the Big East tournament and then went to the Final Four, winning a title in 18. And then the other ones, like you mentioned, Providence, 14 champs, lost in the first round. 15, Villanova got bounced in the second round. Same as 17, where they were a 1 seed, happened again. Seton Hall, listen, they got shafted in 16. Oh. There's no way in hell that a Seton Hall team that just beat the number 5 team in the country in the semis and the number 3 team in the title game, there's no way you can justify making them a 6 seed. Okay, 6 seed, whatever. But sending them to Denver to play Gonzaga with Sabonis and Wilcher, get out of here. Like they were given essentially they were given like lethal injection. Like go have fun going to Denver and getting fed to the wolves. Like I still think it's bogus to this day, and I'm still mad about it 7 years later. I don't blame you can't really blame me, And then 19 Villanova, I mean, let's be real, that was a down year for the Big East. A lot of balance, but no really strong top tier team. And then Georgetown, that miracle run in 21. I mean, they clearly ran out of gas and then just absolutely got whacked by Colorado. So for Marquette, I say yes for that reason, but also no because of the fact that a lot of this had to do with Marquette's inexperience. It's not inexperience of not being in the tournament before. It's inexperience with not having a single senior on the roster that was playing. That plays a big role in, even Kolek, Prosper, guys who are juniors on the team, they're upperclassmen. They still did not show a lot of poise in this game. And, it came back to bite them because Michigan State had experienced guys, been there, done that. And they obviously, had to have a guy like Tom Izzo to, keep them calm, cool, and collected. And the funny thing is, Jamie Erdahl said that apparently during the last media timeout, Shaka was just giving his team breathing exercises, just relax and handle the last 4 minutes of play. And then they dropped some points at the free throw line. They call them free throws for a reason. They missed a couple very important free throws that could have swung the momentum back on their side. And they just failed to do that. And a lot of times, like tournament experience, and of course the, having more upperclassmen, that plays such a bigger role than a lot of people think. And unfortunately, Marquette didn't have that, and it came to bite them in the butt at the end.
Now, does that extra experience definitely has come into play with some seed teams like a third year in a row with a 15 seed upset? First Oral Roberts and St. Peter's last year, and now Princeton. So I think I had a buffering just there. Not sure how much of that y'all heard.
I think you were saying that, that senior experience has proven to be quite important. And I think it's proven to be quite important, year in and year out, not just recently. Occasionally you have you had Connecticut win with its super freshman. But for the most part, we see it all along. And that's been one of Tom Izzo's great strength. I mean, you've mentioned Coach Izzo more than once. I don't remember how long the streak was, but there was a streak. If you played 4 years for Izzo, you made it to the Final Four. That was like 15 or 16 years long. Every 4 years or so, he was getting to March Madness. And those senior leadership is undeniably hugely important this time of year. As much as we talk about the backcourt, we see it. And like you said, we saw it in a lot of the upsets.
Yeah, and I think a lot of experience for some of these younger teams, it's kind of you don't know what you don't know, and playing with house money. So you kind of go in there with little to no expectations, and sometimes you go on a little bit of a run, like we've seen with these lower seeds do, and then that's where it puts pressure on some of these more quote unquote experienced teams that have these upperclassmen that really can, let's, like you guys are saying, calm, cool, and collected, let's get the reins back and take this into control. So that's why you see a lot of these Cinderella story low seeds, like last year with St. Peter's, how that was a run. I mean, we've seen a couple of these teams this year and it was fun. But last year we were the whole country was so in awe of the St. Peter story, just because it was even pressing the pushing the boundaries for kind of these Cinderella stories. But then we saw how in the late stages of that tournament, the experience and these teams that really have these guys that have been in the tournament year in year out showed what they do and ended up winning the tournament. Kansas over North Carolina, but we see Kansas knocked out. And I remember making this point last year where this isn't like college football where a lot of most of the supreme talent is regionalized. You guys could find basketball players in any park all over this country. So it's not more likely, but you kind of are more likely to have these lower seeded, more inexperienced teams that aren't in the tournament every year bounce out some of these teams that are expected to go far or that are just coming off a title like Kansas. So that's what we saw in Marquette. I had UConn beating Marquette in the final. So Marquette threw off that whole part of the bracket. But I remember, we said this is a wide open tournament, but now I think it's really starting to dwindle down, and we'll see. I think the true powers of college basketball really show their strengths this weekend. And back to the Izzo point and kind of the experience in overall. You go back to Coach K's teams with Duke back in the late 80s and 90s. You had and even the 2000s where you had these guys that were there 3-4 years. And then the field of college basketball shifted to more of the one and done aspect, and he had to make a major shift. So that's when you started seeing guys like a Kyrie and Zion and R.J. Barrett and Jason Tatum that are only there for a year. Kyrie was only there for 11 games because that's when his injuries and everything already was starting with him. So it's the experience in this tournament over a multiple year basis is so crucial, especially with this one and done situation. Not even that, the whole transfer portal.
Yep.
Where now guys are going between schools like they're pro athletes, testing free agency. So like I said, these Cinderella stories and these low seeds, it's fun and that the house money. But then that experience sets in with these powerhouse teams, and I think that's what we're going to see coming into these next 2 rounds of the tournament.
Yeah. Speaking of regional, let's just give that shout out to New Jersey with Princeton and FDU.
Yep.
Go Jersey! All right, back to our regularly scheduled program.
One of my favorite facts that I noticed is that you have Fairleigh Dickinson and Princeton combined for 3 NCAA tournament victories this year. St. Peter's had 3 last year. Seton Hall and Rutgers have 3 combined between the 2 of them for the past 20 years.
Yeah, that was what I was saying. They were pushing that boundary for Cinderella story.
Yeah, and Fairleigh gave Florida Atlantic a heck of a game. I thought they were going to pull that one off, but it looked like they just got timid at the end. So what are their chances going forward? We have Princeton is playing Creighton. Unfortunately, they run into another one of our Big East squads. Both can, both teams can shoot the lights out from 3 when it's on. But as we saw against Baylor, if Creighton is on fire from 3, they can beat anybody in the country.
You got that right. I mean, you have some really good 3-point threats. I mean, Ryan Nemhard went absolutely crazy against Baylor specifically with 30 points. And last year, he could only watch from the sidelines because towards the end of the regular season, he suffered a wrist injury that kept him out the rest of the regular season and then the Big East and NCAA tournament. So he's relishing the opportunity to pull this off and play in the tournament. And he's shown up, like, making up for lost time almost. And the big thing is with this Creighton team, they're somewhat inexperienced like Marquette, but having a senior like Baylor Shireman, who is a Swiss Army knife, he can shoot incredibly from deep, and specifically from really deep. His range is incredible.
Oh yeah, he hits Steph Curry circus shots,
and he's a really good rebounder, and he can get as many or more assists than their point guard Ryan Nemhard can on a nightly basis. Oh, and they also have a big 7-footer controlling the paint in Ryan Kalkbrenner, who I believe is either leading the country or in the top 5 in the country in field goal percentage. His efficiency is just absolutely incredible, and he's the 2-time now the Big East Defensive Player of the Year. That's gonna hurt. That's gonna be a bad recipe for Princeton. I think the clock's gonna strike midnight, and it's really funny. I had Arizona beating Creighton in the Sweet 16, and I was second guessing myself. I was tempted to pick Creighton, and now I'm kicking myself in the butt, really wishing I could take that back, because I've been a believer in Creighton since day one, and they had a really, really rough. I mean, they started 6-0, lost 6 in a row, but once they got Kalkbrenner back, that's when they started clicking. And you see a lot, especially in the last 2 games they played, why they were the preseason favorites in the conference, even with the amount of youth they had. They're just a really good basketball team with a really good coach in Greg McDermott.
Yeah, and it'll be. I'm interested to see if Greg McDermott stays at Creighton, or if some other a school from the Big Ten or somebody comes after him soon if he goes to chase a bigger paycheck. And speaking of bigger paychecks, you have Ed Cooley leaving Providence for another team in the Big East. Hoya Paranoia is back. I know Georgetown is trying to capture past glory. And, when they were on top and everybody hated them, I guess what better way to start than poaching a coach from a rival within the conference? And is that more on Cooley, or is that on the Providence administration for letting this happen, you think?
This is a really interesting question, because I don't know if this is much on the Providence administration. I think that a lot of this has to do with Georgetown's administration, because this isn't the first time that Jack DeGioia has tried to go after a Big East head coach while they're still employed in the Big East. Because back in, I think it was like 6 or 7 years ago, he tried to get Chris Mack from Xavier, which I don't blame him. Chris Mack was on his game in 16, 17, 18, especially when he had
that makes sense.
Especially when he had a really good core with guys like Trayvon Blewett, JP McCura, Sean O'Mara, and he took them to the Elite Eight as an 11 seed. Well, part of that was because Edmund Sumner tore his ACL, and he's been really good with the Brooklyn Nets, because when he's fully healthy, that dude's electrifying. And I saw him in college too. He's the same age as I am, and he was a redshirt freshman when I was a sophomore. When he was healthy, I mean, name another guy in the conference at the time that had as much athleticism as he did. Maybe Chris Dunn, but other than that, nobody. And he tore his ACL, and then Xavier went into a tailspin, picked it up around Big East tournament time, and then as an 11 seed, went all the way to the Elite Eight before they got knocked out by Gonzaga. And I don't blame Jack DeGioia for trying to poach Chris Mack from Xavier with where he was at with his program. But, part of it is on Ed Cooley, but a lot of it's on the Georgetown administration, because now this is a precedent that's been set, right? This is the first time a Big East coach has taken a job within the conference at a different school. And I think, Jack DeGioia, as far as I'm concerned, I think he really, I don't want to say he sold out, but he kind of sold his soul to the devil, trying to, poach within the conference. And listen, I said this on the Igloo today. Like the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, said it best. Everybody's got a price. And apparently Ed Cooley's was $6 million a year over at least 6 years. So that was his price, and he took it.
I mean, 6 million is hard to turn down. So I'm not sure what he was. I believe he was in the 4 million range at Providence. I don't know the exact numbers there, but it's a heck of a bump. And I don't know if Cooley thought that where I said that the Providence administration might be an issue is more with like institutional support. If he wanted more money, he wasn't getting any more from Providence. Not sure what their NIL situation is, but that's also part of that's a concern for me, especially for us as Seton Hall grads, is that with the NIL and name, image, and likeness, which is, let's call it what it is, it's pay for play. Whoever's got the most money wins. So for the schools like at the bottom end, as far as resources, you have Seton Hall, Providence, Butler to an extent, versus the big boys like Georgetown. Do the small schools that don't have the kind of cash to throw around even have a chance in the new Big East?
I mean, the way that NIL is now compared to what we thought it would be when it was implemented, yeah, you're kind of right. And what I mean by that in terms of like what we thought it was going to be versus what it is now is becoming like, you throw your money at a kid and he's going to come. Like whatever school is going to throw him the biggest bag, he's going to go there. It's kind of like Ed Cooley being thrown that big bag. So he went and got his bags. Can you really blame him?
No.
To me, like, yes, is it a betrayal for Providence? Absolutely. However, try to put yourself in his shoes. If you got thrown that kind of deal for that lucrative of a deal, would you take it? You bet your ass you would, because it's a lot of money. And the only bad thing is because now he's staying within the Big East and now he's going to Georgetown. So
yeah.
The way I see it, like Seton Hall is at a disadvantage. But like you said, even DePaul to an extent, but even DePaul stepping up. And as a Seton Hall guy, I'm like, what are we doing? Come on, step it up.
DePaul has a much bigger alumni base. Is the problem.
Yeah, and not to mention, you have a marketable guy like Shaheen Holloway. Mm-hmm. We all saw the kind of virality he got as the St. Peter's head coach in taking them to the Elite Eight a year ago. You have that kind of marketability, and they're just not capitalizing on it, nor do they have the resources to do it. So something's got to give, but more importantly, NIL shouldn't be like this. It should be, players should be able to have the chance to profit off their name, image, and likeness. What it shouldn't be is programs to be throwing money at these kids to try to, lure them into their programs rather than they come there and then they're able to profit off NIL.
I agree with you in terms of what we thought it was going to be. I can't complain about what it turned into. It is going to throw the college sports at marketplace landscape upside down, inside out, and in 5 years, we are going to look and we're going to have a new set of who are the powerhouses and who aren't, and what was going to be, and where are they going to align. I think looking at the Big East, and you definitely know way more than I do, I think not only is this Cooley move important, but bringing in probably the most established coach left in college basketball with Pitino, I think it's really going to give the Big East a chance to thrive. And whether it means going to bring in some more schools or if those few schools are going to leave is what the Big East has to do. Can they grab a few more basketball schools that don't want to do football and turn it into a true powerhouse basketball conference like it was in the 80s when it was being run by Georgetown? And that's kind of what this move looks like a start to with the Cooley signing. Am I wrong there?
You are actually. Let me explain why. Do you know the tale of Icarus?
Of course, yes.
So with the old Big East, when they started adding more teams, I know football was a bit of a catalyst, that they flew too close to the sun. And when Icarus flew too close to the sun, his wings melted and he crashed to his death. The way I see it, even if you go in a more basketball-centric way, like if you get, I know this is the sexiest name being thrown out, if you get a school like Gonzaga, for example, adding to it, like you can't ruin the vibe of what you have, right? And when the Big East was in the 80s, they only had 9 teams, and all 9 teams were really good. Even the garbage teams were still really good, and they could beat up on like the old Big 8 in the Southwest Conference and the Big Ten and the ACC and the Pac-10 before it became the Pac-12. So
Yeah.
that's just my kind of take on it. And trust me, after watching Requiem for the Big East and studying the conference's history, that's trust me. The saying goes: fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. If the Big East try to go in that direction, if they try to get to that 16 super conference level, then you're approaching Icarus levels. If they got one more, I think you cap it off at that. You want to have 6 on the East Coast, 6 in the Midwest. I think Gonzaga's too much of a reach because
if Gonzaga was east of the Rockies, I think this would have happened already.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, Gonzaga's farther away from Creighton than Creighton is away from Providence. When Providence is the farthest school east, Creighton the farthest school to the west. Here's my proposal. I know it's not great because UConn, you open Pandora's box bringing in UConn, a state school. Everyone else is private. I like Wichita State joining. They seem like they have the vibe of the Big East school. Not to mention, Creighton and Wichita State have history in the Missouri Valley. Long-standing history. Their fan bases still probably hate each other's guts. And we saw in TBT, their alumni teams played each other 2 years ago, and they went at each other's throats. No love lost, no love found. So if I'm Dale Ackerman, I think if there's any one team, I know Gonzaga's the sexy one, but the best fit overall, and because they also have history with UConn in the AAC, and seriously, is Wichita State an AAC school? No, they are absolutely not. They don't fit in the mold of that. And same with UConn. And they now look at them in the Big East. I think Wichita State could benefit from a move. Do I see it happening? And do I think it should happen? Probably not. But it's the most sensible move. If you wanted to make a move, I think that's the most sensible one to make.
Another move I would like to see, but I don't think it will happen. But with the most recent conference moves with the American, with the teams that are on their way out to the Big 12, that leaves Temple alone on an island. And I think I wouldn't be surprised. They've discussed a few times over the years and come very close to dropping their football team entirely. So if that happens, it would be interesting to see where they would be a cultural fit for the Big East, but Villanova would probably block it. And I believe that came into play in the 2013 reconfiguration where that might be come up with Creighton and Wichita State, where schools are such big rivals, they block each other from joining. Like I know that BC threw the wrench into UConn joining the ACC, which is how they ended up kind of orphaned in the American. Villanova has fought other Philly Big Five schools from joining the Big East, whether it was St. Joe's and or Temple from the A10. Wichita State would be an interesting wrinkle, and for any of the teams and also most importantly, Wichita State has the money. They have the Koch brothers throwing around insane amounts of cash that bring them up to a power conference level. And for any team, do they bring enough eyeballs, or are they just another mouth to feed? Teams like Dayton, St. Louis, they're taking out more than they're putting in. Gonzaga and maybe Wichita State seem to be the only ones that would actually bring more eyeballs.
What about
I get Syracuse back?
What about
only after the ACC falls apart?
Well,
speaking of ACC, let me say, what about teams more kind of Big East located in Maryland or West Virginia? Teams like those bigger schools that have more money kind of being just thrown into the mix. And I could be way off.
Maryland's not leaving the Big Ten. They got a good deal there. They were getting shafted. The reason they went to the Big Ten was they were getting shafted in the ACC, and that was a prescient move on their part. While their older alumni hate it because they would rather be playing Carolina and Duke instead of Purdue and Illinois. But financially, it's been a fantastic benefit for Maryland.
So here's the argument I got to make. So I'm from Utica, which is an hour from Syracuse. I don't want Syracuse back in the Big East. As far as I'm concerned, listen, you sold out to the man. You took the blood money from the ACC, and you're reaping the benefits or in this case, the lack thereof, because you go to the ACC and you lose out on recruiting and all this stuff. Like, yeah, you're taking a lot of this money. Like, oh, look at this TV contract money. Have fun playing in the Belk Bowl again, in the Pinstripe Bowl. Like, yeah, was it worth it? No, absolutely not. Like, and look, Syracuse's program has gone downhill. Part of that had to do with Jim Boeheim still being stuck in the 1970s, playing that stupid 2-3 zone. And I say that as someone who grew up watching them. The game of basketball changed. Everyone can shoot threes now. And Boeheim's like, no, we're going to play the 2-3 zone, make him shoot. Everyone can shoot, dummy. Come on. And I mean, look at it. Look at all these other teams. Pitt took a major step back until this year with Capel taking them to the tournament, making the second round, which is great.
Yeah.
BC's tournament's gone down to hell. And I've talked with some people, those three schools in particular, I guarantee you they're regretting their decision to leave the Big East 10 years later. And it's funny. Highly recommend this read, the book, The Big East by the great Dana O'Neill.
I love that book. Yeah.
She told a great story about, the morning of Dave Gavitt's funeral was the same day that I think Syracuse announced they were leaving to join the ACC. Yeah. It's good that Dave is dead, because if he saw that, he would have died anyway, because like that was just like, you're ripping the heart out of the beast. And the thing is, I think it's karma, for helping ruin Dave Gavitt's great creation. While football also killed it, you also have the added circumstances with all the original members looking for more money, more exposure in these bigger conferences, and paying the price for it by falling back behind all these other teams and just fading into obscurity, because they're not standing out in the Big East like they used to. And now they're just middle of the pack at best in the ACC. And even like Rutgers, for example, they're middle of the pack in the Big Ten. And like, we all saw how awful they were until the Peichel kind of, turned things around. But football wise, they're still garbage. And that's what happens when, you pay the price. You want more money? Fine. But
I am going to defend the Rutgers move here, because in football, as an alum, we were horrible in football, except for the brief shining moment with Schiano and Ray Rice. And we were never good in basketball. But what it has done, the Big Ten, to the other sports has been phenomenal. I mean, it has. And so for Rutgers, as a fan, it worked out, because baseball team is now highly competitive. Women's everything is highly competitive. Men's wrestling had had 2 national championships, and they're showing some life in the Big Ten in other sports. I never expected them to be a basketball powerhouse. I was at Rutgers when they entered the Big East to begin with, which, by the way, came with Miami football at its peak. So there was no value in the Big East. They never gained anything in the Big East. They weren't up for the Big East, even up for the Big East Challenge at that time. When they moved to the Big Ten, no, we're not going to win football championships against Ohio State and Michigan. Yeah. We might show a little basketball, but the rest of sports are thriving because of it. And I don't know about other schools that left the Big East, if their other sports got that boost, the unseen sports. But I will speak for Rutgers.
Boston College is getting the crap kicked out of them in every sport.
That's a fair argument for Rutgers. I will give you that. But like Syracuse, their men's basketball team, as you know, has faded into obscurity.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm trying to think so BC, everything has gone to hell for them in the ACC, especially football. And then Pitt, football has gotten better, but basketball, horrendous now. Like baseball, I feel like that's taken a major step back too. And some of the other, Olympic sports, if you will. And then what was the other thing I was going to mention on top of that? So I want to go back to Requiem for the Big East. This was a movie that came out in 2014, 30 for 30 film that basically it proclaimed the Big East to be dead. And to me,
it was a hit piece by ESPN.
Exactly. And you know what? It was along the lines of the self-destruction of the Ultimate Warrior. I will die on that hill. It had the same epithets of saying, oh, the Big East screwed the Big East. No, it didn't. It was ESPN, the money that they wanted to throw around and football too, like them insisting on football. That was the real, and not to mention, like, we all watched the movie. You were right, JD. It was an absolute hit piece. And I don't want to hear anything tell me otherwise, because to proclaim the league to be dead 10 years later, here we are, and the Big East is where it is now. Like, this is for ESPN. One of these.
Fantastic.
I would go with a more obscure gesture, but I'm keeping it PG.
No, that's perfect. Canadian TV, it's acceptable.
Yeah.
They deserve that for other aspects of sports too, not just that.
Like literally, I mean, think about it. In college football, like they are trying to make college football like the minor leagues of NFL. Like,
yeah,
change my mind on that. That's exactly what they're doing.
Power Five.
All of these power programs, it's the same thing every year. Like, I'm tired of it. Like, even though I'm a Notre Dame fan, all right, I do like college football, but it gets so tiresome. I'm sick and tired of seeing Georgia and Alabama every year. Same with Ohio State and now Michigan and Oklahoma. Like, I'm sick of it, man. Like, enough's enough. That's why March Madness in college basketball will always trump college football every day of the week and twice on Sundays.
And that's why they're trying to destroy the tournament by expanding to 90 some odd teams, which will just water it down so much. Oh, we want to bring in more big majors. Bull. You want to bring in more 7-11 in there, or 8-12 conference teams that had maybe 16 wins for the whole season. St. John's would have been a bubble team under that format. And this is straight from the mouth of Greg Sankey, the SEC commissioner, who is spearheading that movement, as you say, to just make the SEC and the Big Ten like the AFC and the NFC and screw everybody else. College football is an existential threat to college basketball, which is why it's wonderful karma that in the next few years, once that stupid grant of rights runs out, that the ACC that started all this, they're going to get picked apart. The Power Five is fast becoming the Power Two, and the next two, the Big 12 and the ACC. And the Pac-12 is going to be dead within a year because they still don't have a TV deal. So if nothing is set up by the summer, I think the four corner schools, Arizona State, Colorado, and Utah, probably bail out of the Pac-10. It is now to the Big 12.
I think that
also, can we get rid of these number-centric names since none of them actually have the numbers that they say they do?
The Big 10 is 14 teams.
I think that
I think Big 12 is 16 or 17.
The Big 12 currently has 10. After the newcomers come in next year, it'll be 14.
I think for college sports to save themselves, they are going to have to move football out of their conference structure. I mean, I think there's too much money in football for football to exist in the same structure as every other sport, including men's basketball. It's just too extreme. Like, I mean, we talk about this whole Big East conversation we've had. It's been around. First they added football, then teams left to be in football. And it was a great, amazing basketball conference to watch and enjoy. Mm-hmm. And everything that went wrong, in some way or another, it's going to be tied to either bringing in football money or not. So, yeah, and college football, by the way, is the only sport where it has to kind of be to groom for the next level, because the pro scouts need another 3 years on these guys to make rational judgments, and they're not going to give that up. Basketball can turn into a situation where where guys, we've already seen it. Let the best of the best not go there, and we'll still enjoy the tournament, because honestly, very good basketball is still enjoyable. Very good football is not. Like, it better be great football, or you're not going to enjoy it. Look at this XFL and UF. It doesn't bring the eyes. But very good basketball, even if it's not the cream of the crop, will still bring eyes. And I think that in the end, football is going to have to be its own thing, because you need the best of the best playing there. Go on.
Mm-hmm. I think within the next 10 years that the power, however many there are left standing 10 years from now, that those big football conferences will break away entirely from the NCAA and make their own thing. We're already kind of trending in that direction, that the NC2A, as Jerry Tarkanian used to call them, and shout out to Jerry Tarkanian. He was ahead of his time, decades ahead, for calling the NC2A out on their hypocritical garbage, which led us to this point.
So I want to add another point, by the way, and you make a great point about how stupid it would be to expand this tournament field to 96. As great as the tournament is, do you realize how horrible of an idea is to expand to 96? Think about this: if you expand the bubble, right? Have y'all watched the NIT and seen some of these teams that were on the bubble that missed the cut?
Yeah,
Rutgers, Clemson, even Oklahoma State, even though they won their game, even Michigan stunk. You're trying to tell me
Colorado game was rough.
You're going to see so many, and I love referencing Twitter terminology, battle of mid. You're going to see way too many of those. Like 68, like we're doing good. But if it ain't broke, don't fix it. 68, you're good at. It's not aesthetically pleasing because the first four, you're like, I don't know about it, but the first four games are at least fun. It's a proper tune-up to get you ready for the actual thing, because you have the nice blend of two games between bubble teams and then two teams really fighting for their first ever NCAA tournament win as lower conference team, like FDU, Texas Southern, so on and so forth.
I also think, and I said this when we were having our pre-show, those first four games for those teams that win those games are invaluable. Like I don't think that same FDU team without one warm-up game, do they beat Purdue? I don't know. I don't think it hurt them. I'm pretty sure it helped them. And we were talking about when Shaka Smart and VCU went on their run. They had that warm-up. I think that is such a great game to play in for those teams. I think that's a present if you get it, by the way. Like your team gets it and wins, I feel like they're that much more likely to get an upset if they're the 11 seed or 16 than the 5
I would
seed.
agree with that. I agree with that's almost advantageous.
We kind of saw this. I mean, we saw the same thing with the baseball playoffs this past year in MLB, where the teams that started playing built some momentum versus the ones that were sitting at home with Mets.
Right.
Right. Aside from the Mets, of course.
Yeah. Sorry about that, man. Especially with Diaz. I gotta apologize for that because, listen, I'm a Yankee fan, but Edwin Diaz's entrance is absolutely electric. I don't, as much as I love Mariano Rivera, nothing gets more electric than Narco. I want to see that. I wanted to see that in person this year, but unfortunately, as we know, things happen and made me sad. But you're right. Phillies and Padres, they were in the NLCS. They were in that wild card series, and they rode that because they were more warmed up than the Dodgers and the Braves were. So I'd like talking a little bit of baseball too. I know that's for another time, but with my summer college baseball background, I mean, I can't not say something.
Yeah, I mean, you're a PA announcer for the Utica Blue Sox, right?
Oh yeah, baby, PGCBL.
Mm-hmm. I have no idea what you just said. So
perfect game collegiate baseball league.
Okay.
All
righty.
Our man Kyle probably wants to talk WBC. We know him.
Yeah, that's friend of the show and sometimes fill-in contributor that is in the comments right now. Always for baseball, as he says. World Baseball. Have you been watching the World Baseball Classic at all, or just buried in March so you haven't gotten to it?
I have been following along. I know they were showing games on the TV in the media room at the Garden. They were showing, it was Venezuela and Mexico. I think they were showing that right before the Big East final. And then USA Great Britain was right after the championship. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I love this, and it's even great. So I know on Team USA, Cedric Mullins is on their team, who I happen to personally know because he played for the
home run.
I mean, that was phenomenal. Just a little flex. I know him personally because he played right in Utica for the team I work for. The first summer I was working for them, still, between bridging the gap between the end of my senior year of high school to arriving at Seton Hall. He was playing summer college ball, slumming it up in Utica, New York, and now he's on Team USA representing our country in the World Baseball Classic. I saw him hit a pitch hit home run. I'm like, that's my guy. Cedric's a ride or die. Great player, even better person. So I wanted to give a shout out to Ced, and
much needed home run too, by the way.
Yeah, needed. And he's not that. He's 5'9". I'm taller than Cedric Mullins is, and he's out there mashing baseballs like it's nobody's business. So I trust me, I will be watching the final, whether it be Mexico or Japan. I'm rooting USA all the way. I want them to go back to back like they're on the cover of Lethal Weapon.
And do you think that the WBC being in March before the season during spring training is a good idea, or should it be, because especially now as we've seen with the injuries to Diaz and Freeman and all, or should it be after the season in November?
Altuve broke his foot.
Altuve too. That was the third one. Yeah, I knew there was a third one. I couldn't remember what it was. Altuve.
But wait, I just want to say the Diaz, we have to kind of put an asterisk. He wasn't hurt in the game. He wasn't hurt. He
right.
First off, he was electric in that performance, and then obviously the whole freak accidents happened. So I do want to put a caveat on that it wasn't an in-game injury, just because I know that can get forgotten, but because it's the Mets, because it's the Mets, it's going to be
Look, Diaz's injury was the only injury that wouldn't have happened in preseason, because if he had won the game, nobody would have cared. There wouldn't have been a party. But the other ones could have. Here's the thing. If I hear owners going, oh, we can't let our players play, they're going to get hurt. We know. We watch these games. We watch these seasons. Every owner ain't out here trying to win every game. So if you're not trying to win every game, I have zero sympathy for your investment going and trying to win a game for their country. So, and I don't know that my opinion is going to prevail or that it's going to matter to them, but really, I'm rubbing my chin at the owners who say that is all.
It keeps countries outside the U.S. interested in baseball at a time where popularity of baseball is in declining. This is helping around the world. Outside the US.
And again, it's really sad that the commissioner of baseball he grew up 20 minutes from my hometown in Rome, New York, and I'm like, you're really disgracing Central New York by just being the absolute worst. Like, imagine having a commissioner of a sport, and he basically hates the sport with the things that he's doing. I will say though,
I've been a hockey fan my whole life. Gary Bettman's been doing that for 30 years.
True. So here's the thing. This may be a hot take, or I may be in the minority here. I like the pitch clock. I've seen in the minor leagues. Listen, I think there's got to be an adjustment period. I think there's got to be an adjustment period.
Right. There will be.
No, I love the pitch clock. I've watched a few not minor league games, preseason games, and you're drawn into watching that inning. Well, I mean, it still has baseball has a problem of keeping me going in the commercial break, but while the game is going on, the pace is fantastic. I love the pitch clock. The other things I'm not sold on or against, but I love the pitch clock. I think it's great. It keeps me extra glued to the TV. I don't put the phone doesn't come up during the inning. The TV is what I'm watching. So I think it's great.
It's like the shot clock in basketball. The shot clock didn't ruin basketball as people said that it would at the time when it came out, particularly in college basketball in the 80s. And it made the game better. I think we're seeing that with the pitch clock. What really sold me was something that was making the rounds around Twitter. I forget who put this together, but it was a spring training game side by side with a playoff game from a few years ago, where the whole inning in the spring training game was done in the 2 minutes that it took to throw one pitch in the playoff game.
Exactly. You're just watching. You're watching.
Yeah, and just pickoff throws are just something that grinds my gears personally. Like if you throw off the first, step off the bag, batter steps out of the box, walks around, adjusts his glove and all of his other equipment, and then steps back in and does it all over again. Like they should be enforced. The batters stepping out of the box and adjusting drives me nuts even more so than the pitcher stall tactics. So
yeah, like
having
if you want to do it once or twice, like okay, fine, whatever.
Yeah.
But like you don't need to be throwing you don't need to throw 4, 5, or even 6 times over. Like sure, you may respect him, like he's a fast guy, sure, but like really, do you need to throw that many times over? Like relax, just relax a little bit. But so it's stupid, man. It's dumb.
I want to throw jumping on the batters in between pitches, like. You cannot convince me that especially if you just stand there and take a strike, that your whole jersey and everything just got all out of whack, that you got to reset and do everything again. You should only be allowed to even reset something if you swing the bat. If you take a pitch in any way, you can just stand there and wait. That's it. You're not allowed to do anything.
I blame all
You
this on
didn't do
Nomar.
anything, so what do you need to readjust?
Nomar and the Red Sox in general. Nomar, Poppy, all of them.
Oh,
That's how we ended up with 4.5 hour
And
Red Sox
I
games.
love him, but David Wright, oh my God, every single time the gloves and the helmet and then every time if you take a pitch in any sense, you are not allowed to readjust. You have to just stand there and wait for the next pitch. Only if you swing are you allowed, or completely like you have to jump out of the box because you're almost going to get beamed in the head, like most Mets are, by the way. You saw Starling Marte the other night.
Yeah.
So again, because I've seen up close and personal between summer college ball and obviously seeing the baseball guys in college at Seton Hall. Baseball players are the weirdest people in sports on the entire planet. And it's not even close because they're superstitions. I thought I was superstitious with some of the things I do, like especially when I was a Seton Hall fan. When we won the Big East tournament in 2016, I wore the same exact outfit, unwashed. That includes boxers and socks for 3 days in a row.
That's a bit much.
But hey, sure, but like some of these baseball superstitions,
don't you know?
Mm-hmm.
Some of these baseball superstitions are just like weirder because they're more frequent. Like they have a different superstition for every single thing they do. And I thought I was weird with superstitions, but they take it up a notch. I don't see any superstitions like that with basketball or any of these other sports. Not even like individual sports like curling and curling's not. It's like a team sport kind of, but like skiing and snowboarding and
in basketball they just call it pregame routines. They just use a different term.
Every sport has superstitions.
They don't call it superstitions in basketball.
Yeah. But baseball players, it's more like rituals that they do.
Yeah, baseball players do it between innings, between at bats. Like basketball players, football players, they do what they do maybe twice, first half and halftime, before the game and halftime. Baseball players, they do it 9 times, if not every at bat. Like baseball players are more ritualistic than others.
That just makes me
for some.
That just makes me think of the scene from Major League when Serrano wants to sacrifice a chicken. What do we do? Here you go, 1 chicken KFC bucket.
Oh my God.
Well, he has the whole little exactly. I mean, that's what that is all based on, right? I mean, that is, or the lucky underwear that they share.
The lucky jock strap. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Oh my God. You have no. Oh, that's a. So here's the thing. I have a take on Major League and Major League 2 specifically. Major League overall, the original is the better movie. The better one-liners came in Major League 2. I mean, Bob Uecker was on fire. I mean, he's going to need a rocket up his ass to get this one. That baby's out. Like even like that's not Shaquille O'Neal and left. That's out of here. Like some of them were just phenomenal, especially the Monty fly ball caught. That sent me. Not to mention the whole the Pedro Serrano marbles thing. I'm 99% sure that's where Sam Cassell got his thing from.
Sam Cassell, what thing? I mean, I know I know that one, but I'm not.
Yeah, so Sam Cassell was an NBA player. Like I think he played for like the Rockets. He won a ring with Olajuwon. He was on the Bucks. I'm pretty sure he was on the Timberwolves the year they were a 1 seed, and he made these big shots. And when he would make them, he would do the whole, big.
You have no marbles.
Yeah. So and like Sam Cassell was the guy. Like Serrano may have started it, but Sam Cassell made it mainstream like 10 years later. And I'm 99% sure that's where he got it from. And I don't want to, I need to get to the bottom of it.
We need answers.
Yeah.
We need answers. We need him now, Sam Cassell. We need him now.
We need a tell-all.
Yeah.
I'll get a hold of him somehow, some way.
Yeah, we got that player from the Giants. Parkman? No, not those Giants. You're right. You're right. I never thought of it like that because the first one is a better movie, but absolutely. But I quote the Kyle and I go back and forth on Major League quotes a lot, and most of the one-liners are from Major League too.
Hayes takes a swing at Vaughn, and why not? Everyone else in the league does. Like, I don't know why. I have a weird. I wasn't even trying to sound like Bob Uecker there, but like that guy is a living legend.
I'm convinced that Gary, Keefe, and Ron are passing around a bottle of Jack in between them, like Uecker is in the movies, because you have to in order to watch 162 Mets games a year.
Keith definitely is.
Yeah.
It's as a Yankee fan again. I envy you Mets fans that you have the best TV booth in all of Major League Baseball by a wide margin. It's like it's not even close. Like, don't get me wrong. I generally speaking, I like Michael Kay. I don't love him. I respect him. He's good. Meredith Marakovitz on doing the reports on the field. She's really good at what she does. And then I like Paul O'Neill. John Flaherty. Obviously, I miss Ken Singleton on a permanent basis. Mm-hmm. But I mean, the Mets. I mean, name a better trio than GKR. You can't.
No.
Yeah.
The Yankees, and I've said this on our shows multiple times, and I'll tell you, in every aspect of their existence, the Yankees are like a business corporation, very buttoned up, suit and ties, very, very kind of almost, I don't want to say almost political, but just very structured and yeah. But then the Mets, I mean, that's like a family barbecue every Sunday. I mean, we just got fun times, good times. Mm-hmm. Uncle Stevie loves everybody. I mean, it's T-shirts and fun times galore and bobbleheads galore. I mean, that's what it is. And it's, I don't know. It's part of why I'm first. I don't like the Yankee. I like some Yankees players, but the organization and fandom as a whole miss me with that.
Yeah, you have one of the most valuable franchises in sports, yet you still need to charge your players $9 for Wi-Fi per flight or whatever. That's
so stupid, and I feel bad. Like I was a big Rizzo fan before he got to the Yankees, and then I'm like, oh, I love this guy now. And the thing is with like you talk about those promotions, Free Shirt Fridays, the bobbleheads. Like Yankees don't do that. I'm like, yeah, let's do bat day. Let's do hat day. I'm like, no one gives a what about this. Mm-hmm. I almost let it slip. No one cares about hat. And like, I remember one of it was Beanie Baby Day. Like, really? That's what you're going with? I mean, give me a free shirt on every Friday Mets home game all day, every day. And I'm a Yankee fan.
Oh, yeah.
And this and also it isn't even new where there was a story that I heard floated around. I'm not 100% sure of the accuracy on it, but it is believable, especially now with hearing the Wi-Fi story that's come out, that the Yankees cut their office employees' dental plans in order to pay for Mike Messina's contract extension.
Oh, don't get me wrong. I love Moose. Great pitcher. But was it worth that much?
Right. And also like how, you can make a few billion when these franchises are worth billions to nickel and dime like that. Hal Steinbrenner is like a small market owner that just happens to run the most valuable team in the sport.
Not only that, what are like the regional scouts kids braces have to do with Mike Messina? Like, that's messed up. That's messed up. Uncle Stevie wouldn't do that.
Right, exactly. But baseball needs 30 Steve Cohens. He's exposing exposing the small market cheapskates for what they are. And if they're crying about profitability or whatever, sell the team to somebody else who can run, who has the money to run.
And then everyone wants to blame the Mets for upsetting the apple cart when it shouldn't have been this way to begin with. Yeah. It's Uncle Stevie's fault that the Reds and the A's spend $100 an off season in free agency. Yeah, it's our fault as Mets fans.
Look, here, at some point, baseball owners stop playing to try to win. They have stopped trying to win, and it's obvious that many of them are are pursuing profits over winning, because the sport for the owners doesn't reward winning, and that's a problem that the owners face and have to deal with. And so they're getting angry at Stevie for kind of showing that, because he's willing to pay, he has his own tax bracket now, right? The Cohen tax as opposed to the luxury tax.
And
he don't care because he bought a toy and he wants his toy to be shiny. And he didn't buy a business.
Yeah. But the thing is, let's not act like all of these owners couldn't have been the one to do that themselves. They just chose to sit back and not do it because they're not fans. They're business people.
That's right. They own a business. Steve Cohen owns a toy, right? Like Steve Cohen bought himself a Jeep, and now he's hitting it off with all the aftermarket stuff he can to go four-wheel driving. And the rest of the guys have like Land Rovers. They're really nice, and they're just can the Land Rover appreciate if I leave it on the side? Maybe, I hope. It's a bad example using a car.
The Jeep analogy is perfect because anybody I know that I've ever known that had a Jeep, it was in the shop all the time. There's always something breaking on it, so that's a perfect metaphor for the Mets and their injuries. And but the bigger issue, I call Steve Cohen the Iron Bank, like from Game of Thrones. All hail Stephen of House City, first of his name, the keeper of the F's. He doesn't give a single one, and he's also the Iron Bank and has all of the money.
Amen to that. Each team receives $40 million because of this stuff a year, and they still won't spend it. They'll upgrade their concession stands, or they'll put in a new stupid lighting structure or something.
Or they'll buy themselves a new yacht. I mean, they're not even doing that. They're buying themselves a new yacht and then asking the taxpayers to put in the new.
Yeah.
Could you imagine what loser do you have to be a billionaire? Have $40 million gifted to you, you waste it, and then complain about it. What a loser you have to be.
It's kind of like, the meme of the guy who's like, riding the bike and he like puts something in the wheel, and if he falls off, he blames something else. That's exactly what those owners are.
Mm-hmm. A salary floor. All the talk about salary cap, we need a salary floor in this sport.
Yeah, exactly. Like, hey, owners, from the from the lower markets like Oakland and San Diego's a small market. Look what their owners doing.
I talked about this. I got into a comment thread on TikTok with this. The Padres, according to Forbes, are anywhere like the 16th or 17th most valuable franchise in baseball. So technically a bottom half franchise. Yet they spend and offer money like they are like the Yankees and the Dodgers and the Astros and these top 5 valuable franchises. It's crazy. I don't know what type of banking system they use, but at least, hey, they're going for it.
Well, and don't forget, though, their value is decreased because they're paying all these teams money, all these players money. So that actually goes against their paper value.
And also, they do now have a major revenue problem with the Bally's and the rest of the regional sports networks collapsing. That is a major source of revenue of local TV revenue for all of these teams, especially the small market team. So that's so I admit that is a legitimate concern, but that's something that they need to figure out. Ultimately, if these are not like they're all billionaires, you have the money, spend it. And we're getting to the end of this, so let's wrap this up real quick. Tim, what are your Sweet 16 picks for the show?
So, in the South, let's start there. I've had Bama going to the final. I'm going to stick with them, and I think the clock's going to strike midnight for Princeton. I got Creighton beating them in Louisville. Going to the Midwest, I got Miami upsetting Houston, which. I had Houston. I had Houston losing in the second round to Auburn and Birmingham. That obviously didn't happen. I just like Miami and Jim Larinaga against Kelvin Sampson here. And then Texas was my national championship pick. I'm sticking with them. I think they beat Xavier as much as I hate picking against the Big East. And then I'm taking UConn over the 8th seed Arkansas. And then I got UCLA beating Gonzaga. I know UCLA still without Jalen Clark. And then going out east in the Garden, I got Tennessee beating Florida Atlantic. And then I have the other game was, it was Michigan State, Kansas State.
Yeah.
I'm going to take Michigan State. And then, so the Final Four, as I have it right now, by the way, I still have 3 of my 4 Final Four teams left. Alabama, Texas, and UConn. And I only have 4 of my 8 Elite 8 teams left. So here's what I'm going to stick with. I'm picking Bama. I'm picking Bama to beat Creighton. I'm taking, I'm going to stick with Texas and UConn. And I'm going to go, I don't know, Michigan State, Tennessee's a toss-up, but I would not be shocked if Tom Izzo knows what to do and gets his team back to the Final Four. But hey, with Tennessee, they were counted out against Duke, and they beat them soundly. So don't count Rick Barnes and company out. He hasn't been to the Final Four since 20 years ago, 2003, with TJ Ford and the Texas Longhorns. But listen, I want to win my bracket pool back-to-back. So I'm sticking with my guns, hook 'em horns to the title.
Nice.
Alrighty.
And where can we find you when you're not here with us?
Well, listen, I have this tradition on the Igloo, the March Marathon, where I've had a new episode every single day in the month of March, which includes obviously covering the women's and men's Big East tournaments in person at Mohegan Sun and the Garden, respectively. Yeah. So I have a link on my Instagram and my Twitter at The Real Timmy Ice is where to follow me there. And my link tree takes you to my podcast links to wherever you get your podcast, whether it be Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Anchor. Those are probably the most popular platforms. I know Spotify is extremely common because I know that's where a lot of y'all, stream your music and all that. And obviously podcasts are on there too. So Spotify's your number one option. Good news for you. The Igloo's on there for you to tune in for all of your Big East hoops coverage. And that's what I try to separate myself with. Big East coverage exclusively. I like to have a national focus when we get to this point, but it's really the focus is on the Big East night. Also, I'm one of the few that cover both the men's and the women's games. I know the women, they're going on right now. By the way, if you're not tuning in right now, turn on ESPNU because the best player in the country is on right now, Maddie Seegers from Villanova, the Poughkeepsie Zone, best scorer in the country. You might want to get your TV on now because he probably has 20 points already.
Yeah, probably. Just while we've been sitting here, she has dropped 7 more points during this segment.
Yep, she's her, as the kids like to say. She's her.
Yeah. But we have Villanova and UConn still live on the women's side. Also, 5 Big East teams in the tournament on the women's side, which I don't remember when was the last time that happened. If it, not since
most is reconfiguration.
Reconfiguration,
easily.
Yeah, I think the most was 3 before this year.
I think it was 4 last year.
Oh, it was 4 last year. Okay. But and Seton Hall playing in their second round WNIT game tonight.
And it's not looking good so far. It's not looking good.
Oh, is it? I haven't even looked since it's been.
Yeah, no, I looked. It was like 20-9 halfway through the second quarter. I'm like, uh-oh.
Seton Hall's issue all season was that when Lauren Park Lane is having an off night, the team doesn't pick up.
Yep, you got that right, man. I mean, it's a somber note as Seton Hall alums. That's a somber note to end this on. But hey, you gotta do what you got to do, man.
Hey, considering where the program was before Tony Bozzella, they've come a long way. Just the next step has been hard, but we'll get there. Give us the transfer portal away. Free agency we'll see what happens. Tim, thanks for joining us. We'd love to have you again. Check out the Igloo podcast on all of on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all the other ones. You can check us out. Stream Punk Sports on YouTube. Our website with our writing, streampunkent.com. That's we got. I'm not excited. All right, we got. Thank you, Obi. Thank you. It's reversed. So I always keep throwing me off. Thank you, Brandon.
I do it too.
And thank you, Tim. All of you.
Brandon here. Obi over here.
Yeah.
You and the real Timmy Ice.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
Check
guys.
out another week of madness. Check out the
go UConn
final. Let's go. Oof.
Go Big East.
I got money
Go
on
Big
it
East.
as a futures.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I got UConn in the Final Four for a reason, not just for Big East bias, but regardless, go Big East.
Yes. Go Big East. Enjoy the madness and stay awesome.